There is a moment in every person's life that feels like a quiet fracture. Something inside begins to crack, not dramatically, not loudly, but with a subtle pressure that says, the person I've been is no longer enough. This is not depression. This is not weakness. It is the signal that your current identity, your beliefs, habits, fears, style of thinking, emotional reactions, maybe even your dreams, has reached its limit. You have outgrown it. And the only way to evolve is to let it die. But the human mind is built to preserve identity at all costs. It does not care if identity is painful. It only cares if identity is stable. That is why so many people remain stuck in patterns they hate. Their identity would rather be miserable than uncertain. It would rather repeat failure than face the unknown. The greatest prison is not your situation. It is the person you have been forced to become to survive it. But here lies the deeper insight. You are not your habits. You are not your history. You are not even your personality. Those are survival patterns. Templates created by pain, adaptation, environment, culture, trauma, parenting, reward, punishment, and repetition. They were useful once. They helped you navigate certain storms. They built a version of you that worked. But every successful survival strategy eventually becomes a cage. The walls that once protected you begin to suffocate you. That is the moment identity death becomes necessary. Not spiritual, not mystical, practical, psychological, biological. An identity is not an abstract idea. It is a neurological pattern. It is a chemical loop. It is a memorized way of being. And anything memorized can be rewritten. But to rewrite it, something must be understood first. You cannot become someone new by dragging the old identity into the future. You must let the old one die. And this, for the brain, feels like actual death. When you try to change, your nervous system detects threat. Unfamiliar behavior triggers survival responses, doubt, procrastination, anxiety, numbness, excuses. Why? Because your body has been trained to keep you inside a known emotional range. Even if that range is suffocating you, your brain knows how to survive your pain, but it doesn't yet know how to survive your potential. So it rejects change, not because change is wrong, but because old identity is terrified of irrelevance. It is afraid of extinction. This is ego death, not the spiritual cliche, but the neurological truth. Ego is not arrogance. Ego is simply the pattern of how I've always been. It is the internal software built from your history. And the moment you try to rewrite it, you feel resistance. That resistance is real, but it is not a sign to stop. It is a sign that transformation has finally begun. The death of identity is not dramatic. It starts subtly. You begin to question your reactions. Why do I always respond this way? Why does this situation drain me? Why do I feel smaller around these people? These questions are not weakness. They are cracks in the armor, openings in the loop. Your system is showing you where identity no longer fits. The mind doesn't change by force. It changes by awareness. Not through emotional explosions, but through surgical observation. The moment you observe a pattern instead of acting it out, you loosen it. You weaken the code. You are no longer inside the habit. You are watching it. And what you can watch, you can edit. The old identity begins to destabilize when you witness your patterns instead of defending them. That is the beginning of the death process. But people fear this stage. They think, if I stop being who I've been, who will I be? That is the deepest fear. Not failure, not pain, but psychological disappearance. The ego would rather cling to misery than confront uncertainty. That is why identity change cannot be approached like a fight. You cannot bully your identity into evolution. You have to dismantle it like a scientist. Identity is layered. It is made of beliefs you didn't choose, habits you drifted into, stories you inherited, roles you were given, labels you defended, and emotions you repeated until they became personality. To kill an identity practically, you must deconstruct these layers, not violently, but precisely. Here is how identity holds itself together. 1. Belief loops. This is who I am. This is how life works. This is all I can do. 2. Emotional signatures. Familiar feelings the body craves even when they're painful. 3. Behavioral patterns. Subconscious reactions fortified through repetition. 4. Social reinforcement. People around you who expect you to stay the same. 5. Narrative coherence. Your story about yourself needs consistency, even if that story is limiting. Each of these must be seen, not judged, not hated, but understood. Why? Because identity did not appear to sabotage you. Identity appeared to protect you. Even your worst habits began as solutions. They were attempts to feel safe, accepted, or in control. The problem is, they stayed too long. They calcified. Now they stand between who you are and who you could be. So how do we kill identity without losing ourselves? First, stop trying to kill it. Study it. That is far more powerful. When you observe anger, anxiety, withdrawal, avoidance, or doubt without reacting, you weaken it. You are no longer the pattern. You are the observer of the pattern. And with enough observation, a strange calm appears. You stop believing every thought. You stop obeying every emotion. You notice that most of them are recycled noise, echoes from a previous version of yourself. This is the first real death of ego, not destruction, but disidentification. Seeing that your thoughts are not commands, your moods are not facts, your habits are not identity, they are proposals, and proposals can be rejected. The moment you reach this stage, paralysis may come. Old identity is gone, new identity not yet built. This is the void phase, the psychological limbo where you feel lost, blank, empty. This phase is where most people retreat. They run back to their pain, back to their loops, because at least those were familiar. But if you can stand in this void without panic, if you can tolerate uncertainty, your brain begins to build new patterns, slowly, carefully. And this is where people make the biggest mistake. They try to leap into someone new instantly. They force change. They pressure themselves to become something grand overnight. That triggers resistance. Why? Because your biology cannot teleport into a new identity. It must rehearse it over time. It must preview it safely. The brain doesn't accept change through force. It accepts change through familiarity. You must introduce the new identity gradually. Like teaching your system a new language, not telling it what to believe, but letting it experience something different consistently. That is how identity is rewritten. Pattern by pattern, reaction by reaction, choice by choice. Not in violent transformation, but through steady rehearsal until your nervous system learns a new way to exist. You do not lose yourself. You recover yourself. Beneath the noise, beneath the survival costume, beneath the habits that once helped you but now exhaust you. Over time, a new pattern becomes real. It stops feeling fake, awkward, or forced. It begins to feel like clarity, like stability, like strength. An identity death is revealed for what it truly is, not destruction, but return. The great irony is this. When you kill an old identity with precision, you realize you never truly lost yourself. You only lost the costumes you were forced to wear. Pain shaped them, culture painted them, habit solidified them. But underneath the costume, something familiar remains. It was always there, waiting, watching, tired of wearing masks. When you reach this point, transformation stops feeling like violence. It becomes alignment. You feel calm. You feel clear. You feel real. Not perfect. Not fearless. Just true. Ego death is not the end. It is the end of pretending and the beginning of becoming. So when you feel that subtle pressure, the quiet internal fracture, the impulse to shed an old identity, don't run from it. Observe it. Question it. Let it dismantle what no longer fits. And remember this. The person you fear losing never actually existed. They were a story, a pattern, a survival strategy, a ghost built from memory. You do not need that version to survive anymore. What you need is space for someone new to stand up, someone quieter, stronger, clearer, someone who has been waiting behind the noise for years. When you no longer panic at the thought of letting go, evolution begins. Not because you forced change, but because you finally stopped arguing with it. In the end, identity is not meant to be permanent. It is meant to be updated, rewritten, reinvented, reclaimed. The greatest freedom you will ever know is not achieving your goals. It is discovering you are not the mask you've been wearing. Let that version go. Not violently, but bravely. You are not losing identity. You are losing limitation. And that is a death worth dying.